Okay, great. So, good morning again. My name is Gigi Naglak. I'm the Director of Programs at the New Jersey Council for the Humanities, and it is my pleasure to welcome you today to Youth Voting from Suppression to Expression. This is the latest in a series of programs that together form the Democracy Conversations Project. This is a new initiative to explore civic life and democracy in New Jersey by convening discussions among community members. And for this series, New Jersey Council for the Humanities has partnered with 8 of New Jersey's excellent community colleges, each of which will discuss a topic of importance to all New Jerseyans as we think about civic life here in the Garden State and well beyond. So we are eager to explore not only our present circumstances, but how the past has led us to where we are today, and how we together can create the communities we wish to see in the future. The Democracy Conversations Project is part of the Why It Matters Civic and Electoral Participation Initiative, which is administered by the Federation of State Humanities Councils. It's a national program, and funded by the Andrew W. Mellon Foundation and the New Jersey Council for the Humanities. We are a state partner of the National Endowment for the Humanities. I would also like to thank the New Jersey Council of Community Colleges for their support of this program. The program is closed captioned. If you do not currently see the closed captioning and you wish to do so, you may have to start the closed captioning at the bottom of your screen. And if you wish to ask a question or make a comment during the program, please use the chat feature on Zoom. I'll be monitoring it throughout, and we will be taking time at the end for Q&A and discussion. New Jersey Council for the Humanities is live tweeting this program. We encourage you to follow us on Twitter and to use the hashtag #DemocracyNJCH to interact with us. Please do, don't hesitate. The New Jersey Council for the Humanities is thrilled to partner with Brookdale Community College on this program, and I am delighted to introduce our moderator for this morning. Dr. Jonathan Moshberger is a professor of political science at Brookdale, so he actually knows a thing or two about civic participation, I think I would say. Without further ado, let me turn the microphone over to Dr. Moshberger to get us started, introduce our speakers for today. Thanks.
Oh, thanks so much, Gigi. We really appreciate it. We appreciate you and everybody at the council. I have a brief PowerPoint to share with everybody, and then we'll segue right into our students who are the stars of the show, and I'm so excited and so proud of them. So I'm going to share my screen now, and hopefully you'll all be able to see it in a minute or so.
Looking good, Jonathan.
Where'd it go?
Oh, uh-oh. Gremlins.
Oh my goodness.
It's the truth. To the people who've just joined us, welcome. We're just getting started with our presentation for today. And we look forward to hearing from you once our presentations have concluded. Please don't hesitate to make comments or ask questions in the chat throughout the presentations. I'll be monitoring there, and we will have time for Q&A and discussion after the presentations this morning. Thank you so much.
Okay, let's hope this works.
I see it fine.
Okay, good. All right. So welcome everybody, and thanks so much for being here. I want to thank especially the council. I want to thank Gigi and everybody there who has helped us. Angela, who came to our class, a couple weeks ago, and it really was helpful for our students. So thanks so much, Gigi and Angela and everybody at the council who has been so supportive of this effort. We truly appreciate your support for us and for our students. And here at Brookdale, I want to thank my colleague, Nasheen Hussain, who has helped us with the initial portion of this process. And special thanks goes to Deneen. She has been so tremendous. She has come to our class. She has supported us every step of the way. We just couldn't have done this without her. So Deneen, thank you so much for all your help and support. I want to thank everybody at the college who supported us and has spread the word. Kai is here today. I thank you, Kai, and everybody who has been out there supporting us, spreading the message, our marketing folks. We truly appreciate it. Thanks so much for all your help and support. And thanks everybody for being here today to support our students. We see some wonderful folks in the audience and some familiar names and some new names. So thank you all for being here. I want to tell you a little bit about our honors program because these are our honors students. This is my political science honors class, American National Government, and they really are superstars and I'm so proud of them. Here's our mission. Honors at Brookdale provides an enriched academic experience to a select cohort of highly motivated students through a curriculum that emphasizes global awareness, cultural experiences, and local engagement. Brookdale honors students are challenged to connect their studies to the world beyond the classroom. By fostering collaborative learning and intellectual inquiry, Honors at Brookdale prepares students for transfer to competitive four-year colleges and universities, as well as citizenship in our 21st century world. I love the last part. I always like to say that as a political science professor, but I really love the whole thing. I mean, it truly resonates with me, and I hope it resonates with everybody in the audience. And if you know somebody who you think would be good for our honors program, encourage them to apply, because this is a dynamic experience and it's truly a community of scholars. We say your success starts here, right? That it starts at Brookdale, it starts within our honors program. And from there, our students go on to do tremendous things in life. And we're so very thankful for them and so proud of them. So congratulations to our honors scholars, for you guys, for being here, for earning the grant, and for participating in today's program. And welcome to everybody. So our program, youth voter turnout from suppression to expression. Towards the end, we're going to get to the idea of the transformative power of education, which is really, really cool. Truly knowing the past is essential for shaping a better future. This presentation will focus on why younger voters have not been inclined to participate in various aspects of our democratic processes, and how we could deliver a robust educational experience to empower generations of youth to play a more effective role in our system of governance. So we're going to take you on a little bit of a journey. One of struggle, one of rising up, one of overcoming. The beginning is a bit dark, but the ending is bright. From a history that's replete with injuries and usurpations to a future that is truly bright and filled with hope and opportunities for all. And now it is my great honor and pleasure to turn things over to our students and have Amanda share her screen and kick things off for our feature. Thanks so much, everybody. Thanks, Amanda. And here we go.
Okay. Oops, there we go. Okay. Can everyone see this? No.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Well, hello everyone. My name is Amanda Lewar. I am majoring in social science at Brookdale Community College. Upon graduating, I plan on transferring to a four-year college where I would want to further my education on political science. As I am becoming very passionate about activism and advocacy, I want to continually be engaged on what's happening in our country. So I'll be talking about voters' ID laws, discrimination, and unlawful requirements that younger voters face during the voting process, all of these which fall under the category of voter suppression. Every citizen should have free and fair access to cast a ballot in an election, no matter who. We shouldn't be facing any challenges just to vote. The voting process should be made simple and easy for all eligible voters. of any race, required age, or background. Voter suppression is manipulating the outcome of election by making it harder to cast a ballot. It is challenges that an individual may face during the voting process, and it is absolutely unfair. Voter ID laws is one of the policies that is causing hardships to the rights of younger voters. An example of strict voter ID requirements would be Wisconsin's voter ID laws, passed in 2012, allows student IDs as an acceptable form of identification, but the ID had to have a signature and a 2-year expiration date. A 2012 American National Election Study showed percentages of Americans who don't have acceptable IDs. Young adults from 17 to 20 having a higher percentage at 15%. Registration requirements. So voting registration is a hassle, especially for young people who have never voted before. And many may not be familiar with the process and deadlines involved. Registering to vote for the first time or being unfamiliar puts you at risk of voter suppression. Some states allow pre-registration, which allows citizens under 18 to register at convenient locations, so they will automatically be able to vote once they turn 18. There are states that currently discriminate on the bias of age in their vote at home system, also known as absentee ballots. States like Louisiana, Texas, Tennessee, Indiana, Kentucky, Mississippi, and South Carolina allow older voters to vote at home for any reason, but younger voters may need specific excuses. The 26th Amendment proved that age discrimination is unconstitutional. It states the rights of citizens of the United States who are 18 years of age or older to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of age. Absentee ballots can be important for younger voters, especially if you attend college, living on campus, and/or working far from home. Absentee ballots allow an individual to cast their vote by mail or online. But issues like tracking down ballots, making sure it's on time, matching signatures, or address mix-ups can be stressful and hard to cast your vote. This can be discouraging for younger voters. The Election Administration and Voting Survey 2016 Comprehensive Report showed top reason absentee ballots were rejected. These include non-matching signature, ballots not received on time, missed deadlines, no voter signature, and other reasons given. Purging votes. If an eligible voter has not confirmed their address through voting or return postal service mailing, they may be at risk of being removed from the voting polls. Voters purge must happen no later than 90 days from a primary election. The State Board of Election must give notice to eligible voters when they are at threat of being removed from the rolls. Voting purge tend to unreasonably affect younger voters who quite often move around a lot. Irresponsible purges could be a significant threat facing young voters. No one wants to be told they've been removed from the rolls upon arrival to the polls. Between 6 a.m. and 8 p.m. may seem like a reasonable time for polls to be open, but when working excessive hours, attending school, or waiting in lines that may lead to the polls closing when it's your turn can be quite upsetting. Polling has become an issue as some states close polling stations in low-income areas and or near colleges, forcing an individual to travel long distance and wait in longer lines, some who may not even have cars or proper transportation. It is very concerning that long wait times are occurring primarily in communities of color and locations where a large number of young people vote. For example, in the 2020 election, voters in Georgia faced hour-long lines on first day of early voting in the state, which has developed a national reputation in recent years for voting issues. Turning out the youth vote. Here's a national youth turnout percentage comparison from the 2020 to the 2016 election provided by Center for Information and Research on Civic Learning and Engagement, also known as CIRCLE. According to CIRCLE's exclusive estimates, youth turnout was much higher in the 2020 election than in 2016. So it has increased. Here's a map of what the United States would look like if only young people voted. This is another comparison of percentages from the 2020 and 2016 election. I pinned two examples, California and New Jersey. California with a 49% increase and a 25% increase in New Jersey. So the 2020 youth turnout rate is definitely increasing. Fighting against voter suppression and increasing youth voters turnout. First and foremost, educate yourself on voter suppression, voting rights, and your state laws and requirements. Be willing to fight against voter suppression. Protect yourself by checking your voters' registration. Things like automatic registration, making Election Day a national holiday, and preventing long lines by adding more voting machines and polls can help fight against voter suppression. Plan it out, whether it's mailing in your ballot and going to the polling station or making a phone call to your local or state election office for information. Make sure you are aware and prepared for voting. Also, signing petitions, taking action into court, and updating the voting rights are also ways to fight against voter suppression. Last but not least, spread the word. Encourage others to vote, register to vote, volunteer, and have an understanding of our voting rights, youth voting rights. Most importantly, make sure you go out and vote, whether it's a presidential election, selecting members for the House of Representatives, or selecting members of the U.S. Senate, or local officials running in your community. Remember, everyone deserves to have a voice on the governmental decisions that affect them. The youth must participate in our democracy, and we must vote civically minded and engage with what is happening in our country. Thank you.
It's great. Thanks so much, Amanda, for kicking us off. And I love the, the positive stuff at the end with the solutions, the ideas you have to make things better for all of us. So thank you, Amanda. And now, everybody, it's a pleasure to introduce you to Victoria, who's going to talk about voter suppression among minorities. Victoria, take it away.
All right. So, as Mosh said, I am doing voter suppression against minorities and the targeting among minority and low-income communities. And so my name is Victoria Wicklund, and I am a first-year student at Brookdale Community College. I am a biology major. I have an aspiration to go somewhere in the medical field, not sure yet, but I plan on transferring into a four-year college. Beyond that, I have a great interest in history and civics, and I particularly enjoy politics. I'm passionate about a variety of issues regarding politics, and I feel it is critical in today's society to stay informed on current events. In my section of this presentation, I aim to highlight a growing issue within voter suppression, which is targeting minorities and the minority communities. By recognizing and addressing this issue, my main goal is to advocate for the critical policies that represent the entirety of the voting eligible U.S. citizen population and ensure justice for all, regardless of race or socioeconomic status. So I wanted to outline some key questions in this presentation that I'm going to address when it comes to voter suppression amongst minorities. So the first question I want to address is, why is it targeted towards minorities, and what is its overall purpose? Like, what do people get out of targeting these groups? And the second question I aim to highlight is, what impact do the voter ID laws have on the minority turnout at the polls? And the last one is, why do minorities and low-income communities have low voter turnout rates? So I wanted to highlight what is voter suppression. I know Amanda got into it as well, but I feel like it's just important to have this in. So voter suppression is defined as strategy used to influence the outcome of an election by discouraging or preventing specific groups of people from voting. It disenfranchises and intimidates a significant number of potential voters, and a majority of them include immigrants, the elderly, and most importantly, minorities. So, why are minorities a target? Racially biased election laws are heavily aimed and enforced within minority communities. And these are seen through voter ID laws, registration, multiple forms of registration, and other forms of voting suppression. And they are heavily enforced within communities with large Latino populations, African Americans, and other minority groups. Many lawmakers today aim to keep that alive in fear of the minorities, which could vote them out of office. And it's not something new in our history. I mean, it's completely, you can see it through like the 15th Amendment. People were forced out of polling. They were intimidated, and intimidation, voter intimidation and suppression is not a new concept in America. And it is still prevalent today. And it's really important to understand it has not gone away, and it's still an issue we need to bring up in election cycles. So I have some statistics here of the most recent election. I believe it's from not the most recent, it's from 2016, my bad. So according to a poll conducted by the Public Religion Research Institute, 9% of Hispanics reported that they were told they lacked voter identification and were not able to vote, compared to 3% of white responders. Already you can see there's a huge disparity between these groups, and it plays into it. In the next statistic, 10% of Black responders and 11% of Hispanic responders reported they weren't even listed on voter rolls, compared to only 5% of white responders. Already, these disparities are showing there is still a gap between these groups, and there is something going on between voter suppression and keeping minorities away from the polls, and it's definitely still happening. So I wanted to talk about voter ID and its outward impact. So voter identification laws serve as an official verification of identity in order to prevent the voter fraud in an election. So this concept, it sounds promising. It prevents falsification of identity, illegal immigrants from voting. It's ideal in some politicians' eyes. However, they disproportionately affect the elderly, minorities, and low-income groups that tend to vote Democratic. It is also used to negatively harm minorities, and it excludes them from voting in major elections by certain officials. Most minorities and other young eligible voters may lack government-issued identification, excluding them from the registration for the voter ID. So if they don't have certain things that they don't have a passport, they don't have identification, a birth certificate, they are not able to register. Even if they are a legal citizen, they can't participate in the elections, which keeps them away from the polls. And many of these ID laws are heavily enforced in minority communities, and they are extremely some of them may be costly to even try to get, and many people can't obtain these very easily. So I want to turn it over to low turnout rates. Along with voter ID, there are also other factors that play into low turnout rates among minorities and minority communities. So there could be little to no language translation on ballots, there's little knowledge of polling locations, and there also is heavy ballot language restrictions that all factor into voter suppression. And for many immigrants and minorities, the language barrier does actually steer them away from participating in elections and voting. So I want to talk about how the main language that is translated in elections is Spanish. It's from the Voting Rights Act, and Spanish is just the main thing that's on the ballot. However, many still don't show up to the polls because they're feared they can't communicate with someone. There's no translator there. They don't know if they can actually vote or not. And that steers many people away from participating. And non-English proficient voters have little resources to turn to for the ballot translations. They would have to bring their own translator. If you're not speaking Spanish, you feel you're out of the loop. You're going to have to go through a bunch of hoops in order to even get a translator, or get someone who can help you vote. And it's extremely tedious, and it steers people away, and it's not an inclusive process. So I wanted to include a figure here. With translated voting ballots, in the 2004 election, voter turnout had increased by 11%. And that is a big number. 11%, although it may seem small, is huge, especially in a large election. And if we use that in the 2020 election per se, in the 2020 election, 11% could make or break a state. It could make them blue, it could make them red. And that is very important in our democracy. And voter turnout is essential into getting a democratic election. And another factor that comes into low voter turnout rates is polling places. And current elections can lead to a lower turnout because of where the polling places are located. So I'm using the same figures from my other slide. So 5% of the white survey respondents reported that they had trouble finding polling locations, compared to 16% of African Americans and 16% of Hispanic respondents. Already, that is a huge jump in comparison to the white survey respondents. These minorities, they're having trouble. And there also could be other factors when it comes to polling locations. It is essential to know where your polling location is, unless you're an absentee ballot or you're voting by mail. There's no way you can not vote without going to these locations. And little to no publication of these locations, purposely misleading them, it is something that we need to address, that can happen and has happened in previous elections, that it completely is disparaging and it disenfranchises these minorities. They don't know where to go. They don't have the resources to see it. Some people don't have access to the internet. And low income communities, it's extremely hard if they're changing the polling place last minute. And one thing I wanted to bring up, polling places are also left to a elected official's discretion, their replacement. So you could either do it in a community YMCA where local minorities and low income people go, or you can change it to last minute to a high school or a borough hall where they may not know where to go, or it's tricky completely, it's not translated, they're not sure where to go, and that completely contributes to the issue regarding polling places. So I wanted to talk about reasons and solutions, what we can do to help prevent voter suppression among minorities. So if you're not able to vote in a local and official elections, just say you're not 18 yet, you don't have the registration yet, I would say being the voice of advocacy is a great way to end voter suppression. And participating in protests, staying involved in current legislation regarding voter ID laws. It's always important to look at your local elected officials, your governor, everything. You got to understand, what are their views on voter ID laws? Do they support it? Does your state support it? Understanding where you're at and where your country's at with these certain laws is a great step to figuring out, well, how can we end this? How can we tackle this? How can we give more resources to those who don't have them? And that leads me to one of the most important parts of, if you're not able to vote, is educating those and helping those who don't have the resources as you. They may not have access to the internet. They may not have access to higher level education, and by having the say and having the opportunity to help them, help fight for them, be their voice in some way who can't speak up, you're aiding the end of voter suppression. And one other thing I wanted to mention, if you are of voting age, one of the most important things of voting out voter suppression is electing officials who do not support that, who will tackle it. You are the voice of democracy. Everyone who votes in an election is the voice of democracy. And by electing out these officials who target minorities through harsh and disproportionate laws, you're ending systematic racism and oppression, and you're basically exercising your civic duty. But one thing I want to leave off on, and I want to let you guys have, is voting is not only a civic duty. Although it is seen in the Constitution, it is a civic duty that you just got to do it, to participate. It's more than that. It is a privilege to have, and it is a privilege to exercise that not everyone can share. People still face these difficulties at the poll, and it's really, really important to understand, if you can walk right up, just go right in after registration, and you can just go right in and do it, that is a privilege, because some people face extremely different ways of getting to the polls, and it's really, really hard for some people to even get up there and cast their vote in an official election. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Victoria, for your passionate presentation. Check out the comments now in the chat box. And Amanda, you check them out too if you haven't. Very supportive of you guys. So thank you so much, everybody, for your support of our students. They're doing a great job. From Victoria, we're going to turn it over to Chris. Well, we have two Chris's. Chris Choate up first and Chris Lopez, and then we'll keep our conversation rolling. So, so thanks so much, everybody. All right, Chris, you ready to roll?
Oh, yeah.
All right.
All right, let's see. All right, we got another presentation about voter suppression here. So my name is Chris Choate. I almost completed my first year at Brookdale. Oh, I'm sorry, one sec. Let me move the box out of the way here. My majors have been fluctuating throughout my time here. I went from computer science to general health sciences to currently being undecided. After this semester, I'm going to talk to advisors and take some career tests to see my potential paths I could take for myself. If I could figure out my near future plans, I'm considering on transferring to a four-year college. And my choices will either be a college in New Jersey or Florida, depending on whether I want to keep dealing with the Jersey weather. So what is voter suppression? Voter suppression is basically a strategy a specific group of people may use to discourage certain individuals from casting their vote. Different types of voter suppression. From the basic definition, voter suppression often sounds as if it's an intentional action to help a certain party benefit from the lack of knowledge of people from the other end. But this isn't always the case. Various individuals don't vote due to multiple reasons. Young voters may not understand the entire process on how to register, or some may just believe that their vote doesn't matter. According to the New York Times, fewer than half of Americans ranging from the ages of 18 through 29 years of age voted in the 2016 election. While elderly people, on the other hand, may know their opinion matters, they may fail to express it due to the complex websites it takes to register or to update their information from. So, difficulty in young voters. New voters often see the political world as a complex, hard to grasp system. They fail to realize that this actually isn't the case at all. While it is not entirely their fault, schools and local governments should perform a better job at informing young adults on how to properly fulfill their civic duty and vote for the politicians that they believe benefit them the most. According to Youth Service America, nearly 20% of young adults feel as if they don't know enough to actually vote. Due to the lack of this knowledge, many younger generations tend to not involve themselves in the voting world. Tedious systems for elderly voters. Elderly people lived in an entirely different world when they were younger. Due to this, they are oftentimes stuck in their old ways. Sometimes they aren't always open to learning new things. This becomes a problem when an election comes their way. If they never voted in the past or moved and didn't vote in years, then their voting information may be outdated. Also, along with their older age also comes with more health issues. Due to this, a lot of older folks may not drive anymore, which also may cause issues for them showing up to the polls on election day. According to Next Avenue, they stated that there are some situations where older voters lack transportation, along with them being no accommodations with those with disabilities at the polling locations. With these issues, along with everything running on the internet in the modern world, older individuals tend to have a really hard time trying to figure out the right resources on where they can update all their personal information to make sure their vote counts. So COVID-19's attribution to voter suppression. So Corona was a huge deciding factor to many people in the 2020 election on whether or not they wanted to risk themselves to cast their vote. Luckily, the voters who were concerned over their own health, many states made mail-in or absentee ballots the mainstream way of voting. According to the Washington Post, the voter turnout in the 2020 election beat all other previous records, including Obama's 2008 election. This is mainly due to the mail-in ballots being the mainstream way of voting. This also gave people with underlying health conditions a safe way of casting their vote without having to risk themselves. Even though mail-in ballots were the main source of casting their vote in the past election, some states still allowed their legal residents to vote in person on voting tabulation machines if they desire to. So, how the news influences their viewers. Over the past few years, it should not come as a surprise to anyone that various news outlets are extremely biased. For instance, CNN and MSNBC are left-wing news channels, while Fox News, Newsmax tend to be heavily right-sided. According to an article from the University of Oregon, they state that one of the first ways journalists get involved with elections is by choosing which candidate they choose to cover, which can cause misperceptions among the voters who watch them. This causes many discrepancies for both parties. If a Democrat watches CNN, they believe a Republican politician is committing far worse than what's really happening. And if a Republican watches Fox News, quite literally the opposite happens. Things may get even more confusing to them if they simply switch channels. Between the news anchors constantly bashing politicians they don't care for and heavily biased diagrams or polls, there may be a lot of people who are severely misinformed due to the biased information they receive over various situations. The media knows how big of an influence they are to their viewers, and due to this, voters may not fully understand who the politicians they support really are. Social media platforms are the biggest influence to people's political opinions. For those of you who may not know, social media apps tend to be very biased. Even though they try to look neutral with everything, in reality, they aren't. Twitter and Facebook are huge culprits to this. Twitter uses its hashtags page to promote negative events or vulgar and hateful movements, while Facebook removes posts that they deem as quote unquote misinformation or something that goes against their terms of service. According to the Daily Mail, Yoel Roth, the head of Twitter's fact-checking team, previously stated how the Trump administration were quote unquote Nazis. He faced backlash for his anti-Trump tweets just 24 hours after the first wave of fact-check warnings hit former President Trump's tweets. Twitter also tends to blatantly remove trending hashtags that they feel isn't up to their agenda. This happens towards many politicians. A prime example of this is when President Trump got removed from Twitter while he was still the sitting president. That action alone shows how much power and influence they can have over a country. And yeah. That's it.
Awesome. Great, Chris. Thanks so much for continuing this conversation for us. And now we're going to switch the order real quick because Chris Lopez is having an issue that prevents him from going right now. So we're going to segue over to Aliza, who's going to give us some powerful information about how we can change things for the better in terms of critical thinking and analysis of media. Aliza, as soon as you're good to go, you can take it away.
Okay, sorry. Everybody can see my screen?
Yes.
Awesome. Perfect. I just need this. Hold on. There we go. Okie dokie. Yes, so my presentation is on critical thinking and analysis of media. So yeah, my name is Lisa Faraday. I'm in my second semester of college. I'm pursuing an associate's of liberal arts, and my future plans, they involve like finishing my degree and like probably diving right into missions work. It's not like completely set in stone. But I'm really passionate about wildlife management. And I completed a month-long internship in California at the Orange County Zoo, where I learned all of the duties of being a zookeeper and how to properly care for exotic animals. So I am I strongly care about issues concerning climate change, pollution, recycling, and wildlife conservation. And in addition to environmental problems, I am very concerned as well with cyber terrorism, voter turnout, and media bias. So my presentation is focusing on critical thinking and the media analysis, because I hope to educate like high school and college age students here in the tactic of media employment, how the media employs emotional tactics like to create emotional responses to things and to show young people how to have a productive discussion on politics with people of different views. So by definition of critical thinking, it means the objective analysis and evaluation of an issue. And the definition of analysis, there's two. The first one is a detailed examination of the elements or structure of something. And the second definition is to examine methodically by separating into parts and studying their interrelations. So I want to use this one as my definition for analysis today because this is how we should approach the media. We need to separate what it's saying from the facts that they present so that we can examine methodically the facts in part so that we can gain clarity on how the smaller parts relate to the bigger picture. That will give us a much more accurate view of the current political and news climate. So how does this actually relate to civic engagement? Moreover, why should you care about this? Well, as a group of college students or near college students, critical analysis of essays is how you're going to get through college. However, critical analysis of media is how you're going to get through life. You need to arm yourself with the necessary tools to not fall victim to the red herrings and fallacies that the news may present. Because outside of the classroom is the nation that many of you are going to live in for the rest of your life. And you need to be aware of how your opinions will be influenced. So what do credible sources look like? So again, in college, they're going to look like articles with authors who have PhDs or who work at a university or who have exceptional experience in their field. These articles are probably going to have like a minimum length requirement so that they're actually of substance. And hopefully we'll have a substantial reference list. So it's identifying these valuable sources is crucial to the college experience. So you can base your opinion and your essays off of these experts. And many of the same criteria translates directly into credible news sources. So you need to make sure that the person you're getting your news from, that you're listening to, has experience or education in their field. And you can rely on academic articles for good resources. How does one objectively digest new information? To stay current, students and young adults must digest information of very recent events, and they could be as recent as the past several hours or days or weeks. So it is the job of the journalist who's presenting the article to objectively relay the facts, to report them. But sometimes they fail at remaining objective. So it is the reader's or the public audience's responsibility to first focus on the facts that they present, to know what's happening, and to try not to get distracted by the other filler statements. What red flags are common in the news to rouse an emotional response? So one of the largest ones is imagery. Powerful images are used in the news most often. They'll be right on the front page or right after the headline. So these images could be of political figures giving a speech. They could be violence. They could be regular, like they could be colorful or eye-catching pieces of artwork. And if they follow a headline, the headline itself could also be misleading. That's frequently used in the media. The best example of misleading headlines is clickbait, and we all know that clickbait is sometimes really powerful. It gives the audience an exaggerated version of the story for views. So these exaggerations could be in the headline, the actual title of the news, or the clickbait. It will pique the interest of the audience. Could either just, something of note that they want to look at, or it could get them angry, or it can make them fearful. And as we know, clickbait can look like X amount of things that you need to do for da 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 da, or this will make you thinner or prettier or get you a promotion at work. And sometimes clickbait is used for storytelling. It could be, watch this famous person do this horrible thing, or you won't believe what this person said. Even on CNN a few days ago when I was looking at it, one of the titles said, see what this man says he found in his cereal, just so that you'll go and look at it. It wasn't important. So who is actually the most honest? Who can you trust? Well, every site has an agenda, and knowing that every site has an agenda will keep you from blindly believing the media. So how will people actually try to persuade their audience? It's all a form of marketing. Products or popular stories, they're trying to be sold to you. Products are used to promote, like, the greenest grass on earth, or popular stories could be the hottest gossip or the most crucial information that you just need to know. Even tragedies can persuade audiences to change their opinions on issues. Now, clickbait doesn't equal 100% lies all the time, but we all know clickbait, it does not equal 100% honesty. So I'm just asking that you please be aware that the digital age is going to make honesty less desirable than instant gratification. What identifies an irrefutable fact, and what makes a massive opinion or just a regular opinion? So we all know this. Facts are statements that can be or have been proven to be true or false, whereas opinions are expressions of a person's feeling that cannot be proven true. And when a massive opinion is presented as an irrefutable fact, it is called dogmatism. And in the news, it's often like a dogmatic expression. So I included an example of this. If we try to keep these conversations, like how we can keep them separate or what they look like. So a dogmatic opinion would say something like, I think an AI would make it easier for patients to confide their information because by nature, a robot cannot judge them. Win-win. So for context, this person is explaining how AI in, like, the medical facilities would make people more comfortable in revealing personal information to their doctor, because a robot won't judge you if you smoke or if you overeat or something like that. That's what their assumption is. What's important here is the quote being an opinion presented as fact. Saying a phrase like I think is an opinion phrase, but they will end this quote by saying win-win, assuming that what they're saying is the best option for everyone. And we know that's not true. This person is making a judgment about the AI instead of speaking about the facts of what an AI is actually programmed to do. So if we take the dogmatic expression out, it could sound something closer to its function. So primary care physicians can use AI to take their notes, analyze their discussions with patients, and enter required information directly to EHR systems. These applications will collect and analyze patient data and present it to the primary care physicians along insight to the medical needs. This is saying what AIs, how they assist primary care physicians because of their purpose, existence, and their capabilities. So note that this does not say that AIs are going to make the patient more comfortable, because that's the opinion. It only includes the AI's function, which is the fact. So this will lead, what are the skills we need to discuss politics with people who have different views? Now, this is really important to expand your approach to argument, your approach to educating and politics of your family members or your friends. So the first important thing is to try to listen to that person before you try to convince them otherwise of their opinion. To first listen to them discussing their political view, it demonstrates that this is a balanced conversation instead of an argument. The second part is to refrain from initial judgment. It can be incredibly difficult when a person that you're talking to has you wildly disagree with. And so try to figure out why they made their statement or hold their opinion before you write them off as a bigot or a radical extremist. You listen before you convince, and you refrain from initial judgment, so that number 3, you don't assume malice. some people are really, really bad at communicating their views. And many times people hold views that they aren't educated on, and they're ignorant of this subject, and they're just regurgitating what they heard somebody else say. So don't immediately assume that they want to cause you or somebody else harm, but give them the grace to be wrong because they need more information. And that's also to respect the person. In the heat of a disagreement, it is extremely tempting to attack their character, calling them a bigot, calling them stupid for holding their opinions. That's never appropriate or productive when you're trying to talk to someone. And you no longer hold the ground to disagree because you're fighting the person instead of having an issue with their politics, and that's fruitless. So try to finish the conversation. Try to come to a conclusion. That does not necessarily mean a compromise of your views, but reach a point where both people can leave and not be heated. Storming out of the room abruptly when someone says something that you disagree with lowers your credibility to your claims, and it weakens what you're saying, and it makes you seem like a more like an immature person, someone who can't be trusted to have a conversation about something that they disagree on. And this relates directly to the next part: how, when you practice talking to people who have different views, what will that look like? How will that help you? It will help you have deeper conversations with them. You'll learn more about the person, and you'll understand more why they have those views. It'll actually lead to less arguments. Sounds kind of weird. You're engaging with someone in essentially an argument about politics, and how is that going to lead to less arguments? Well, when you're handling a discussion in an academic and mature way, it avoids unnecessary arguments of intense emotion. You're just talking to them, and the emotional responses are put aside. So it's learning how to digest different political views and respond eloquently will actually allow you to control the conversation. A little bit, it sounds kind of like manipulation, and to a certain degree it is, but it's actually you being calm, cool, and collected. When you're on track, you're not easy to engage in bickering, and you can actually steer a conversation who's flying off the handle back into a more neutral topic that you are comfortable talking about and that you want to continue. Ultimately, you become the most educated person about that topic, and you will hopefully have these conversations leaving both participants wanting and craving to go do more research on the issue to further their knowledge and to not just want to be right. So I thank you for listening to me, and I hope that that left you with something to think about.
Wonderful, wonderful job, Eliza. Thank you so much for your excellent presentation. And you definitely gave everybody a lot to think about and a lot to think critically about. So mission accomplished. All right, well done. And now I want to segue to Kathleen, who's going to share a look at the past, telling us some history lessons that can provide some insights for shaping a better future and how young people have been a driving force for change. All right, Kathleen, you take it away.
There we go. Hi, everyone. My name is Kathleen Kane, and I'm an education major in my sophomore year at Brookdale. Oops, sorry. Okay. And this is my first year in the honors program at Brookdale, and I'm currently the Vice President of Membership, Communications, and Fellowship for Brookdale's Phi Theta Kappa Honor Society chapter, Alpha Pi Theta. In the near future, I hope to become a United States history teacher at the secondary level, as well as obtaining my endorsement in special education to make my classroom a place of great potential for all who enter. And I'm interested in not only women's rights and issues, but those of refugees and immigrants as well. Due to the research and real life experience I was able to obtain through Phi Theta Kappa Honor Society Honors in Action. Today I'll be presenting an in-depth look at how you can use young people's historical acts from the American Revolution, the women's suffrage movement, and the civil rights movement to inspire positive change for our world today. My aim is to inform the audience that history does not need to be about memorizing facts, but rather it can be used as a tool for growth and inspiration if one looks hard enough. Okay, so let's take a quick history lesson. So this is some of the most important dates, one of the most important dates to the country, March 22nd, 1765 to September 3rd, 1783. And this was the American Revolution. So as we all know from history class, this was when the 13 United States colonies went to war with one of the greatest empires of the time, Great Britain. There were several causes to the revolution, including the Intolerable Acts and no taxation without representation. And the United States, in the end, won their independence, and George Washington became our first president. Now we're moving on to dates that people may not be aware of, or they may not have a whole lot of knowledge on. And this was July 13th, 1848 to August 18th, 1920. And this was the women's suffrage movement. So for pretty much since the country came to be, women did not have the right to vote, nor the same rights as men. So they fought for over 70 years for their right to vote, using countless protests, marches, speeches, rallies, and conventions. And on August 18th, 1920, they emerged victorious with the 19th Amendment, which gave women the right to vote. Now we're coming up to a more recent date. So December 1st, 1954 to April 11th, 1968. And this was the civil rights movement. So African Americans did not have the same rights as white people in the country, and discrimination and racism ran throughout the country during this time, and even before it. But there were countless peaceful marches, speeches, and the whole country was able to change. So African Americans received the same voting rights. There was no more designated restrooms or schools or lunch counters or restrooms, and or lunch counters or workplaces, and equal rights were able to be attained for all. So I know what you're thinking. This is all different times, and how do all these events relate? Well, there's three of the same. So what do all three of these events have in common? The first is oppression was occurring. So whether it was from the government or from others in the country, unjust treatment was occurring. The second is all triumphs came from my idea. So all those who participated in these historical events understood progress was needed, and things were wrong and they needed to be changed. So whether it was the social status or the need for the government to change. And finally, and what I would really like to emphasize on is the triumph came about due to young people. So young people joined the fight, and in most cases led the fight during these events. And young people did not back down to their oppressors. And overall, young people realized that it was their impact that created progress. So through these events, I'm going to convey to you that I'm going to use different examples from the time periods beforehand, which I just described. And I'm going to tell you that young people throughout history have changed the world for the better, therefore you can too. So first, we're going to start with the American Revolution and a man named Edward Rutledge of South Carolina. So according to, so at the age of 26 years old, Edward Rutledge became the youngest signatory of the Declaration of Independence on August 2nd, 1776. This was a ginormous deal because according to the Independence Hall Association, those who were elected to go to the Independence Hall to sign the Declaration of Independence, these were elected by the people, by the colonial legislators, or by the committees of correspondence of the respective colonies. So at the age of 26, Edward Rutledge was chosen. And so there were many countless men especially older men that could have been sent from South Carolina to go sign the Declaration of Independence, but South Carolina legislators and those in South Carolina chose a 26-year-old, which really speaks volumes. They believed that a young person could take on this task. As for the document itself, according to Randy Barnett of the Washington Post, the Declaration constituted high treason against the Crown. So at such a young age, at the age of 26, as I keep saying, he was so young, and yet he risked his life for freedom. He believed in a cause, and he was willing to put his life on the line in order to achieve that cause. And the same could be said when he left the Continental Congress in 1776 to go fight for South Carolina, and he earned the rank of captain in the Charleston Battalion of Artillery. So the same can be said that he was risking his life in order to obtain what he believed in. He believed in the freedom from Great Britain. So look at him for inspiration to fight for what you believe in. He was fearless in the battle for freedom from oppression, and he was willing to risk his life. And I'm not saying that you have to risk your life for your cause. I'm just saying that he was dedicated. He dedicated his life in order for his cause to succeed. And he even became the governor of South Carolina. And so not only did his fight and for his passion for independence stop at just when we won independence, he wanted to continue, and he became governor of South Carolina. And he also fought for something that many people thought would fail, because according to William Marina of George Washington University, John Adams indicated that 1/3 of Americans were for the revolution. So that meant 2/3 of the country either did not support the revolution or were a little bit wary on if we really wanted our independence. But Edward Rutledge did not let that stop him. He did not let other people's opinions and other people's beliefs stop him when he knew that it was right to fight Great Britain and to earn our independence. So what you should take away from Edward Rutledge and his causes is that people are going to disagree with your cause, and they may not care and they may not believe in you. But if you keep fighting and you keep, and even after you keep fighting, you keep fighting even after your cause has been achieved, you can achieve amazing things and you can go on and really change the world. So now we're moving on to a woman named Elizabeth Cady Stanton. So in American government and my past political science class with Professor Moshberger, we had the opportunity to read a book called Votes for Women by Winifred Conklin. And this really opened up my eyes into the women's suffrage movement, because I was never taught that really in school. And if I was, it was maybe for just a few days. So it's a very important event. And it started out with Elizabeth Cady Stanton. So I'm going to be telling you a quote from Conklin and from Elizabeth Cady Stanton's life and from her journals. And so I wanted to start off with a little bit of background. So at the age of 11, Stanton's brother passed away. And so this quote that I'm going to show is a portrayal of what Stanton did in order to comfort her father. So he mechanically put his arms around his 11-year-old daughter, and she rested her head against his heart. Eventually, her father sighed and told her, "Oh, my daughter, I wish you were a boy." So at the age of 11, Elizabeth Cady Stanton was then told by her own father that because she was, that he wished that she was a boy. And so he wished that she was not a woman because she would be able to carry on his legacy in the law. And at the time, as I said before, women did not have many rights, including the right to practice the law, and women were not believed to be smart enough. And so by her father saying, "Oh, I wish you were a boy," he's basically telling Stanton that she's not good enough. And so that did not stop her, because she started to do research into the law books that her father had, and she started to realize how little equality that women had compared to men. And this eventually led to the Seneca Falls Convention, which happened in July 1848. So according to History.com editors, the Seneca Falls Convention was the first women's rights convention in the United States. This was a ginormous deal at the time, because not only was this the first convention, but this was most likely the first time that women were actually, especially young women, were actually able to come together and talk about certain things that were, supposed to be kept quiet, such as, so revolutionary conversations were happening, including the discussion of the right to vote, which women did not have, the right to an education that was primarily for men, the right to property, which women could not own. The talk of divorce was especially revolutionary, because at the time, women were just supposed to be kept quiet in their marriage and be happy. And especially the talk of anti-slavery. This was, excuse me for one second. This was 13 years before the start of the Civil War. This was ginormous, and women were not only thinking about their own rights, but they were thinking about all rights for everyone. So looking at these examples down below, we can presume that women were thought to be the weaker gender. But what did they do? They studied and proved themselves just as capable as a man in various areas, including education, and they fought back and proved those who oppressed them wrong. So what you should take away from these examples is you need to stand up for your beliefs. Don't let anyone tell you that what you're fighting for, what you believe in, is too revolutionary. And you also need, like Stanton, you also need to do your research, because when you have the facts on your side, you already have the advantage. And you also need to speak out for what you believe in. At the time, women, did not have the right to speak out in public, or it was very looked down upon, but they did it anyway. And they came together with like-minded people to think of solutions. So if you come together with people who believe in your cause and you have the facts on your side, and it may not happen overnight, but if you keep fighting over time, you will be able to achieve your goal for the better. Now we're moving on to the civil rights movement. And so this was a time in history where a lot of young leaders started to emerge. For example, Martin Luther King Jr., who was one of the most influential people in the civil rights movement and also in history, was only 25 years old at the time. So once again, young people realized their impact on the progress of our nation. So I wanted to first start talking about the Little Rock Nine. So these were 9 Black high school students from an all-Black high school who volunteered to go to a formerly segregated high school called Central High School. So according to History.com editors, the students were met by Arkansas's National Guard on order of Governor Orville Faubus and a screaming, threatening mob. So even though they faced great dangers and, it was horrible, they stood in the face of danger and they continued. They fought to go to school and showed the world that everyone deserved the same education rights and to be educated together, even if people did not think so. So these people were changing decades of hate into a fight for peace. So what I'm trying to convey is, do not be afraid to make change happen. The Little Rock Nine seemed like they were revolutionary for the time, but they were not afraid. They did not back down, even though there was the National Guard was standing in their way, multiple mobs. They did not back down. And so if you realize something is wrong, you have the chance to change it. Look to Little Rock Nine for inspiration. Look to their bravery. They stood in the face of danger, as I keep saying. And overall, do not be afraid to change what has been established for fair for most, but instead make it fair for all. So now we're moving on to February 1st, 1960. So this was when 4 college students, let me emphasize, college students, inspired a new form of protest called sit-ins. And so 4 college students sat down at the whites-only Woolworth's lunch counter in North Carolina, and they didn't move because they wanted to be served. And so when they were denied service and they were harassed, they kept sitting. They did not move. And over the next few days, this sparked interest and this sparked attention. And other people decided, you know what, I want to also sit next to them and I want to join in their fight for equal rights. And eventually, over the next few days, the owner caved in and they allowed them to sit there. So what I'm trying to portray with these 4 college students is you should think of new peaceful ways to attract attention to your cause. One of them could be social media. That's a big aspect today. If you just make, a post saying, I don't know, something like, stop using plastic straws and instead use metal straws, and give some facts and give some reasons you're peacefully protesting plastic straws. And you can also hold, but don't stop at just social media. You can also hold peaceful rallies and you can also make speeches. When looking at the 4 college students and their idea to sit in, it inspired others to follow in cities all around the country. And so at such a young age, they were, from 18 to probably about 22 years old, again, college students, they were able to inspire a national movement. And, this inspired other people to continue in the fight for equal rights. And then this also led to the creation of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. So just by one simple act that they did, they were able to create such huge change. And what I'm also trying to make to you is, do not give up even when people think you're wasting your time, because change will come if you want it bad enough. And overall, you can make a change at any age, just like those above, the Little Rock Nine and the 4 college students. So yes, you can. So right now there's a lot going on in the world, and I know it's scary, but you can make a difference. So whether you're passionate about climate change or social justice or voter suppression, you can make a change. But you have to follow a few steps. So you need to do your research. So be like Elizabeth Cady Stanton and do your research. So use the resources that you learned from the presentation today. Find how you can find good news sources, how you can find bad news sources. And as I keep reciprocating, do your research, because when you have the facts on your side, you're already winning. Okay. And you need to not let others discourage you, because if you need to be like Edward Rutledge, who kept fighting for the rest of his life for the freedom of Americans, even though a lot of people at first didn't believe in that. They didn't believe that we could break away from Great Britain, or we can earn our independence, or that we even needed our independence. And you can also be like Little Rock 9 and the 4 college student at Wilworth's lunch counter, and do not let anyone stop you where you see a positive change is needed. Because yes, they were young, but they created great change that happened throughout our nation, that was needed throughout our nation. So yes, you are young, but that does not mean we are not informed as well as determined. I mean, I'm only 20 years old, and I'm passionate about, a lot of causes, and I want to make change in the world, and I'm not letting my age stop me, and neither should you. And finally, you should keep looking to the past as inspiration, because when you look back, history can be a scary thing, but can also be a thing of great learning. And it shouldn't just be about memorizing the facts, such as when George Washington, crossed the Delaware. It should be about looking at these stories and using them as inspiration for yourself and for your cause that you want to make the world, to help better the world. And so I wish you luck on all your future endeavors, and I know that you're going to do amazing things. Thank you so much.
Well, thanks so much, Kathleen, for that inspirational presentation. You gave everybody a lot to think about as well, but you showed them examples how young people have been a driving force for change and how we can apply that to our lives today. So what a message. And I think that resonates with our audience for sure. Thanks, Kathleen. And now I'm going to turn things over to Nicholas, who's going to continue our conversation about engaging youth, and he's going to talk about some great resources that are available for our youngsters to become a part of. All right, Nicholas, all yours.
All righty. Good morning, everyone. My name is Nicholas Tomorrow, and as Mosh was telling you guys, we're going to be engaging the youth, talking about that. It is a topic near and dear to my heart, and I'll get into specifically why. First off, I am living in Lake Como, New Jersey. I was recently elected to my town's Board of Education, so I do truly care about childhood education. And as you can see, I am pursuing a political science major here in my second year at Brookdale. So bringing some good civics education into the classroom is something that is very important to me. So to start off, I want to show you some statistics from the Center for Information and Research on Civil Learning and Engagement. It's called CIRCLE. It's been around since about 2004, and they've been covering the elections on the national level since 2004, both the presidential and the off year with the House and Senate races. So over the past 3 election cycles, the CIRCLE has determined, first off, that 45% of eligible voters cast a ballot in 2012, which it's great, but it's not good. And it only increased by just over a percentage point in 2016 during that wild election cycle. But thankfully right now, Tufts is estimating through their CIRCLE that 52 to 55% of the voting eligible youth cast a ballot in this past year's election, which is a huge improvement. That is nearly 10% of a raise in people, my age, younger and slightly older, who've cast ballots. And while COVID was a problem, that's one of the reasons why young people were able to vote, is because we were all stuck at home and they made it easier for us. And that's sort of the topic that goes hand in hand with how we can engage the youth is making things easier. One of the big things we can do to make it easier is to just provide them with the opportunity to engage in these thoughts. First way to do that is through civics education. Civics education is not a requirement in a lot of school districts around New Jersey and around the country. I actually went to high school in another state and we didn't have civics education. We just had, our normal social studies where we learned all about, American history. And while it's great, I think I could have been benefiting and spending 3 entire years studying the 20th century outside of the United States. I studied, the European theater, South America, all of that, but I never got to really experience proper civics education until I made it to college and entered Professor Moshberger's class in 2019. So Moshberger's class has been an absolutely amazing time. In this class and when I was back in his other class in 2019, he provided us with a space to where we could exchange ideas and we could sort of debate topics. We didn't fully debate for a lot of time, but we were able to talk about how the process works and how how the United States is currently operating. And I think that's something that's much more powerful than looking back, and it's also, we were talking and engaging. Research has shown that it is not as effective for the repetition and recitation that teaching has essentially become, in the STEM studies. It's a lot of repetition and recitation, and I mean that works for that, but when you're talking about something that changes the lives of everybody, you need to have a space where you can exchange those ideas and learn about the uniquenesses and the quirks of each individual topic. And we just don't get that right now. And I think the best way to do it is to have civics education in schools, provide students with the opportunity to learn about our current government and learn about, how to vote, where to vote. If you're giving them this information, they're gonna be able to use it much easier. As past presentations had mentioned, there is a struggle with voter suppression. And while we definitely need to make some strides at the national level with making laws, it's very important that you try to take out as many obstacles as you can while we're still working on the bigger obstacles, while we're working on, if there's, as was mentioned, language barriers or, closing of polls too early. We need to fight those topics, but those problems, but why can't we also solve some smaller problems like how to vote, where to vote in your town or state? And I think that's one of the best ways to do it is through civics education. And I grew so far into my civics into my political sphere at Brookdale and through Moshberger's class that I was elected to the school board in my town. It was through that engagement that I thought, hey, I can actually make a difference at my age. And that's why I put my name in and got onto the board. So other than civics education, the other big thing to do is engaging in activities or clubs. Rock the Vote is a absolutely amazing organization that sets up events and voter drives, all designed at getting the youth engaged and going to vote. I've been involved with voter drives at Brookdale through Moshberger's class, and it's a really simple process. Having been someone who's registered to vote in 2 states, obviously I'm only voting in New Jersey, but I have voted elsewhere in the past. It's a very simple process, and it's nice and easy when you have someone coming to you and giving you that information. As I mentioned, part of it is making it easy. And we've been raised in a time where we have all this information right at our fingertips. We have Google, we have social media, we have access to news sites just like that. We don't have to turn on a TV, we don't have to read a newspaper. We just click on a link and boom, we're there. So we're used to everything being delivered to us. And organizations like Rock the Vote provide you with the ability to register to vote, so you don't have to say, oh, I didn't do this, I didn't do that. They give it to you and say, hey, here's exactly, are you 18? Good. Are you eligible to vote? Good. Here, you can fill this form out and you're ready to go. And it cuts away at excuses, because I know, at least myself, I come up with a lot of excuses for not doing stuff. But taking away those excuses makes it more likely for you to vote. And I believe that as the research had shown, is because we were trapped with COVID and because we didn't have anywhere to go and we were mailed our ballots. I think that's why we had a higher turnout. It's because amongst the youth is because we were given the information. We didn't have to go seek it out. So Rock the Vote is a great way to get people to engage. Now, the other thing to do, as I mentioned, was clubs. So 2 national organizations right here. You have the Young Democrats of America and the Young Republicans National Federation. They are a national scale. I wouldn't expect you to go out looking, if you align with the left or the right, to go specifically seek out the national levels. But there are great groups right here in, I'm in Monmouth County, and there's the Young Republicans of Monmouth County, there's the Young Democrats of Monmouth County. If you just do a quick Google search, you can, all it takes is 3 to 4 letters, YDA, YRNF. You look that up and you type in NJ as well, and then you'll get brought to the websites of the state pages, and then you can go and easily navigate to the county pages and get involved. These 2 groups are, if you have an idea of what you identify with politically and you feel you identify with the Democrats or the Republicans, this is a great place where you can exchange ideas in a more partisan way, and that you don't have to fear being careful, I would say, around another party. Whereas if you are engaging in civic education and you're in that dialogue in class, you're going to be wanting to take a more nonpartisan, analytical look at it. But if you were to join one of these groups, you are able to foster your opinion more. And it's not about saying that the other side is non-agreeable. It's just, it allows you to form your opinions on a more solid level than very specifically for identifying who you really want to vote for and stuff like that. But for those who aren't specifically identifying with a Republican or Democrat, just join the local club at your college, high school, whatever place you can get. We here at Brookdale have the Professor Moshberger's History and Political Science Club, and that's a great place where it's a nonpartisan effort to be engaging in topics that should be really important to the youth. And it's just a quick email to Moshberger, or it's a quick Google search again for whatever school or organization you're with. You can find, if you are with an institution, you can find a way to express yourself in that nonpartisan manner, especially outside of the classroom. And the other thing is going on to specific issues or specifying where you want to align even further. I have here 3 women's organizations that are very important in talking about women's rights to vote, and how it's been 101 years since we've had the right to vote for women, and it's a very important cause. And right there in the center, the League of Women Voters. All you got to do is look up LWV and you're brought to the League of Women Voters. So if you identify as female or you align as a female ally, you can take a look at the League of Women Voters and see what issues, women really, care for. If you're not looking for, a gender specific group, you can look up, there are some for environmental issues. There's some on both sides of the abortion debate. It's very easy now to be engaged, especially since COVID has kept us all at home. All you need to do is have a phone or a computer that has access, and you can join, Facebook groups or Twitter, or maybe there's stuff on Instagram where you can just join and express those ideas. And a combination of these three things and giving youth information on how to vote and how to represent themselves, it'll lead to a higher degree of bringing youth to vote. I truly align with that research and how we had that near 10% jump in voter turnout amongst the youth. I think if a full core press of providing information to the youth and encouraging them to engage in these clubs, that we can see higher numbers as the years go on. Research had actually shown that had more voters turned out in 2016, the vote might have swung towards Clinton in 2016. Biden won a lot of his states due to the young vote. A lot of the states that Biden won, the young vote was very high in those states. And it's very important to get the youth out because we are the largest voting bloc. We're coming up on the largest voting bloc, and it's very important to go and get ourselves out to vote because we can change the future. We just need it to be, given to us in a much easier manner. So with that, thank you so much.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Nicholas. Thank you for your passionate presentation, and for your already getting involved in the process. Congratulations, on being elected to the Board of Education. That's tremendous. That's what I love to see more of. I often tell my students that you have keen insights. You have recently gone through the educational system. Therefore, you know what works, maybe what doesn't work, and you can share those observations with then fellow board members. So at age 18, you're eligible to run for the Board of Education, and Nicholas has proven that and put it into action. And so really wonderful job, Nicholas. Thanks so much. Everybody, I wanted to share something real quick. I'm going to put into the chat right now a link to a petition that we've created. You're going to hear more about that in our next presentation for you to sign on if you would agree with us, which I think based on a lot of the commentary, we would like to seek to have civics become a robust portion of our curriculum in New Jersey. We want to have more emphasis, more focus on having it. We want to bring it to, to the community, to our students in a manner where it's going to be extremely impactful. So I'm going to put that in right now, and then I'm going to segue to our next two superstars. All right, so here we go, everybody. Up next, we got a team, and it's Nora and it's Tai Fan, and they're going to continue a conversation about civic education and how we can get it embedded in the core curriculum, and what a game changer that would be for us and for future generations. And it's going to pay dividends down the road, long term, for sure. It's going to be a life changer for all of us. So thanks so much, Nicholas, and here we go. Thank you to Nora and Tai Fan. You guys take it away.
Civic Engagement in the Core Curriculum by Typhane Orange and Nora Thompson. Hi, everybody. My name is Nora Thompson, and I'm 17 years old. I'm from Old Bridge, New Jersey, and I'm a biology major at Brookdale Community College. I plan to graduate this spring and transfer to a four-year college. Some of my hobbies include baking, reading, hiking, and theater. I'm very passionate about environmental issues and human rights. In the future, I hope to pursue a career in healthcare and help research to find a cure for Alzheimer's disease. Today, I'm going to be giving a presentation with my friend Typhane on the importance of civics education in New Jersey schools.
Hi everyone. Okay. Hi everyone. My name is Taifan Orange. I'm a political science major and honor student at Brookdale. I like history, art, and literature. In the future, I want to help build school in low-income areas because I believe that people can do amazing things if they have the opportunity to do so. I also want to help with social injustice in the United States. I'm interested in human rights issue as well as equality for women. I know it's been a long day. We're gonna be quick. Today we are going to present how educating students about engagement can bring awareness and increase voter turnout. What I hope people to take from this presentation, well, we hope people to take from this presentation is that you're not too young to make changes. Every big idea has started with one person thought.
Civics education is a big topic. Today we're going to narrow it down into 3 segments. First, we'll define what civic engagement and civic education are, which you probably already have an idea of. Then we will discuss why teaching civics is so important. And then we'll finish what we can do as American citizens to bring civics education into our schools.
Civic engagement or civic participation is any individual or group addressing issues of political concern. Civic engagement includes community working together in both political and non-political action to protect public values or make a change in a community. These can include activities such as voting, lobbying, running for political office, engage in civic duties like jury duty, registering for selective service, paying taxes, or enrolling in the military. You can still participate in civic engagement by performing community work such as volunteering or taking part in a community organization. Generally, as long as you're taking your part in your community, you are performing an act of civic engagement. There is a place for each and every one of us.
Schools are found in virtually every community across the nation. Therefore, not only can they, but they should play an important role in civic engagement. Schools can help educate young people on civics and prepare them to become knowledgeable, competent, and responsible participants. Schools can also provide direct opportunities for civic engagement as a local institution that can connect young and old people alike. We can only achieve this if we make civics education a part of the core curriculum in America. Which brings us to our next point. Why do we need civics education in schools?
The American political system is a representative democracy. In order for it to function properly, it requires the participation of all American citizens. Schools were made to prepare students to be effective voters, citizens, and members of the society. Civic education is a necessary key to that preparation. We have to know the value of our country in order to protect it. How can we expect a democracy that is founded upon public participation to prevail if we are not teaching the younger generation to participate in it?
As the saying goes, if it isn't tested, it isn't taught. Only 8 of the 50 states require students to pass the civics test to graduate from high school. Arizona, Idaho, Louisiana, North Dakota, South Carolina, Tennessee, Utah, and Wisconsin. Notice how New Jersey isn't one of those. According to a 2016 survey led by the Annenberg Public Policy Center, only 1 in 4 Americans can name all 3 branches of government, which, by the way, is legislative, executive, and judicial. Additionally, 82% of Americans report distrusting the government. Clearly, America is in desperate need of a civics education.
According to the national report called the National Assessment of Educational Progress, NAEP, civic exam have seen little to no progress since students started taking the exam. Less than 25% of students are proficient in this subject. Federal funding are more focused on the performance of school in the math and English subject, yet they neglect the civic engagement, and state education budget include but do not enforce civic education. However, as the economic gap exists in the school system, so is civic engagement. A kid in a low-income area will be less likely to know about politics. They are 30% less likely to report having experiences with debate or panel discussion in their social study classes, while a kid in a better economic school system is more likely to get involved in a political action. This is not to say that a community of color or low-income communities are less interested about civic engagement, but but rather to acknowledge that disproportionate exclusion from civic education combined with other structural barriers such as voter suppression, voter disenfranchisement, and an understandable distrust of government can lead to decreased civic participation.
As you can see, we need to improve civics education in America. In order to increase civic engagement and improve the nation's understanding of government, we need to take action to make civics engagement a part of the core curriculum in American schools. It is up to us as citizens to make this possible.
How can our government help?
This diagram gives us an overview of how a bill becomes a law. It is a long and complicated process, but if all goes well and the bill is passed by a committee, Congress, and the governor, the bill becomes a law. It can take several years for this to happen, but citizens can escalate this process by sending letters advocating for the passing of the bill. Now, we know we have a problem in New Jersey. The problem is that current high school students are required to take 3 years of history, but their only distinct civics education is an optional one-semester course in the 12th grade. 1/3 of American students in low-income urban communities drop out of school by the 12th grade, so they won't even have the option to receive a civics education. We believe that in order to fix this problem, civics education should start at a younger age and be a required subject in New Jersey schools.
New Jersey Senate Bill 854, also known as Lewar Wooden's Law, is a bill currently being endorsed by the Assembly Education Committee. If passed, this bill would require civic instructions in middle school and authorize the New Jersey Center of Civic Education to provide curricular, professional development, and technical assistance for middle and high schools civic.
This bill is named in honor of Laura Wooten, who lived in Lawrence Township, New Jersey, and passed away at the age of 98 on March 24th, 2019. She overcame racism and sexism and served as an election poll worker for 79 years, earning her the legacy of the nation's longest continuously serving poll worker. We would like to ask you to help us get Laura Wooten's law passed by signing a petition at the end of our presentation in favor of Bill 854.
The great aim of education is not knowledge, but action. Youth voter turnout has historically been low in all elections, but saw a 97% increase from the 2014 midterm election to the 2018 midterm election. 23 advocate for youth describe the phenomenon as a youth wave. Youth civic engagement through protests, social movement, and voting illustrate how the United States and democracy only goes stronger when young people are civically engaged. In order to engage students effectively, relevant decision makers, including practitioners and policymakers, need to support civic education at the local, state, and national levels. People always say that youth is the future. With this statement also came responsibility. Youth needs the opportunity, with this statement, people always say that youth is the future. With this statement also came responsibility. Youth needs the opportunity to have their voice heard and build their future. One way to do this is by voting. I'm sure that at least most, if not all of us here has experiences where we are in class and we are like 1 or 2 points off to get a desired grade or a better grade, I would say. So it is the same thing as voting. You thinking that your vote doesn't matter is actually the same thing as that 1 point that you're off of getting that grade. So next time there's an election and then you feel discouraged about going to vote, remember that 1 grade that you didn't get, and I'm sure you are going to change your mind. Your vote matter. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great job, Nora and Tai Fan. You give everybody also a lot to think about, but the importance of civics education and getting that bill passed, right? So we put the petition in the chat and I hope everybody has seen it. You can click on it now and have a tab up or just copy paste it, save it for later, share it with everybody that you can. If it's something that you would agree to, we would totally appreciate you signing on board and endorsing it. Now we don't have to have an official signature because we can't do that right now with the pandemic. So just a name, would suffice in terms of your endorsing it, with a few other things that the state would be looking for, just some contact information. But if you could sign on to help us bring this to fruition, help make this a reality, help make change happen in New Jersey, we would be forever grateful. But so many would be grateful, about having this kind of impact to deliver real and lasting change to our state and our state students, and change for generations to come. So thank you, Nora. Thank you, Tai Fan. Thank you, everybody. I didn't see Chris come back on. Chris, are you here? Chris Lopez. Chris, are you here? No, so we'll have to go on, and I'm not sure what happened, if he had technical difficulties or not. Gigi, you don't see him in a waiting room or anything like that. Okay, so we'll have to move on to close out our program anyway. So let me share my screen and bring it to a close. And let's see. Hopefully this will work without a problem and you'll be able to see it. Oh no, what's this? This is not the right one. Okay, I think this is it. Can you see the screen, everybody, where it says "Thank you over the ocean"? You can see it?
Yes.
All right, thanks for letting me know. I was worried there. Okay, so thank you, everybody. First, thank you for, to our students for your passionate presentations. You are wonderful, really wonderful. I truly appreciate your presentations, but most especially, I truly appreciate you. And it's just been such an honor and a privilege getting to, work with you and to get to know you better. Special thanks to the New Jersey Council for the Humanities, especially Gigi and Angela for their help and support. Again, I want to recognize my esteemed colleague, Deneen, for all of her help here at Brookdale. We truly appreciate it. And we want to ask everybody, I want to thank everybody else as well. Thank you to everybody in the audience. And we talked about the next steps already, but to put our 3 A's, what I call the 3 A's, because I haven't ever come up with a better term than 3 A's, awareness, advocacy, and action, right? To take awareness and turn it into advocacy and action. And with your help, we can create transformative change. So sign our petition. I have another one to share with you. I have something else to share with you. So join us for In the Weeds, which is next Friday, April 2nd at 12 noon. We're going to continue this conversation and we'd love to have everybody back for it. It's so important, so important. So here's the start and let's keep it going and let's deliver on some positive change. I want to see if you might join us today, right now actually is coming up at noon. From noon to about 3 o'clock, we have our Civic Engagement and Empowerment Conference, and we wanted to fold the student special presentations into this, what is really a special day. And definitely join us, because right off the bat, kicking things off for our welcoming speech is going to be Senator Vin Gopal, and really excited to have him there to share his experience and his passion with our students. So I want you to be the change, right? Be the change. Bring these things to fruition. We can do it. Young people can do it. History, and it's being demonstrated in today's times, right? Let's do it. Let's make it happen. So whether your name is Malala, or whether your name is Greta, or whether your name is Amanda, Victoria, Chris, Eliza, Kathleen, Nicholas, Nora, or Typhan, you and all of you here today, and every young person, can bring about positive change in order to bring about a brighter future for us all. And so thank you all so much for being here with us today. I have to tell you that we truly appreciate